Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to do something different. Today, I want to talk about those times in our lives when we experience a situation or an event that really shakes us to our cores. And or we might be experiencing a disconnect from ourselves and from our spiritual practices. We're descending into the underworld, or we're moving through the underworld. The sort of death energy experiences that we can have with our practices, and when we feel like we're just in the dark, or we're feeling lost, disconnected. Maybe we're struggling to connect to others, to our guides, to our practices. So I've recently gone through an experience like this. I like to always refer to these moments as being a dark night of the soul. And I did sort of experience something like that, where essentially I've just been feeling really disconnected with my practice. I'm not really feeling fulfilled by some of my practices, and I haven't really felt called to engaging in them. And this is something that I really want to speak to today, and sort of understanding the difference between the need to combat this energy or this feeling, to shake it off, so to speak, and really understanding the difference between that and those moments where you're really supposed to surrender to that energy and move through it. Just sort of understanding the difference between the two to the best of my knowledge and experience. So personally, I find that these moments, they really occur when you've experienced something in your life, a situation or an event that really just shakes you. This could be a tower moment. It doesn't have to be, but it certainly can. It can be not necessarily a life-altering event, but it can be something that can be quite a shocking experience, or definitely something that you didn't expect. And oftentimes these events can make you feel disconnected. And I think we have to remember that our spiritual practices, or if you're a practicing witch, your craft, essentially, your practice, they are expressions of who you are. They're parts of who you are. So when we go through these events or these situations, when we start moving through the underworld, it's easy to feel disconnected from what used to give us so much pleasure and joy. And this is a very normal situation to go through. I think we all go through these times. We all go through these events that really shake us, and they change who we are, or they change parts of who we are. And although we might look the same, we might express ourselves in similar ways, we can still be the same to a certain extent. However, there is a part of us or a part of our lives that has died due to the event. And I know death, it's something that brings up very intense feelings. And for me, when I mention death with respects to this video, I'm talking about the death card. I'm talking about that energy, that ending and new beginning energy that is connected to the death card in tarot. I think it's also important to mention that these situations can also arise due to a significant change in your mindset. This could be new restrictions or a life change. It doesn't necessarily have to be like this shaking or shocking situation that happened to you, although I do feel that that is the most common situation. It's a very difficult thing to experience. It's something that I think nobody really wants to experience, that feeling of darkness. It can be quite depressing to experience, especially when you're moving through this mourning phase or this grief. When you recognize that there has been a loss, even if it's an aspect of who you are or how you used to think or believe, there is a recognition there that a part of you has died. It's ended. I just want to really express that there are times when you are meant, in my opinion, to combat this energy. But I don't think it's in the situations that I just expressed. And I think we're so used of trying to fight this energy off. I think a lot of us that are maybe new to this community, to this path, it's not commonly recognized. A lot of people like to avoid death. The mass public opinion, it's something that people they want to avoid it, they don't want to look at it, and it brings up a lot of discomfort. As a society, we're just so disconnected with death, the concept of death. Even though it is very much a natural part of life and experience, just being here alive, it's still, even with me, I feel so uncomfortable anytime I experience, a death card moment. That energy, even though it's something that might be expected to a certain extent, I oftentimes do experience the death energy or death card during times where, something has just naturally ended. It's just succumbed to the natural, I guess, order. It was something that I could feel. It was already sort of going on with my practice, my daily practices, which are typically something that feels so fulfilling to me. I was no longer really feeling fulfilled by them. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to return to them in the future, but it also doesn't mean that I will. And I initially felt that this was something that I had to fight off. And again, I do think that this is something that we sometimes do. We don't initially think to fight it, or to surrender, sorry. we don't always think that this is something that we need to surrender to. And I think a lot of us want to fight. We want to fight that something is ending in our lives, that something, we can't go forward with it. And that's sort of where the grief comes in. And that could very well be the grief too. So it's sometimes natural for us to have that resistance. I was noticing, even though I was feeling this death energy, this ending energy, or dark energy, I was trying to force light, life, and lust, the lust of my practice. I was trying to really force that. I was choosing the colors that are associated with those things and the decks that can really bring forth that energy. And it just didn't feel right. It wasn't sitting right with me. And I think that's the best sort of indicator between those periods in your practice where you are meant to combat that energy by bringing in that energy, versus the times that you're really just meant to surrender to the energy. It just won't feel right. You'll be gravitating towards, instead of red or pink, the life or lusty colors, yellows, you'll be more gravitated towards darker colors, lots of black, At least I've noticed that with me. And the decks that sort of really hold that energy of the underworld or the Samhain Sabbath. For me, it's the Nameless One Tarot. I've been feeling drawn to working with that deck again, or the Witch's Tarot by Burning Paper Hearts. A lot of that dark energy and a lot of lots of expressions of dark colors, lots of black depicted in the imagery, as well as even in art. You'll be more drawn to the darker artwork. What I'm just saying is you'll really be able to distinguish the two by how you feel and how you experience it. You'll have this feeling of it, it just won't feel right to you. And you'll quickly be able to distinguish if this is something that you can fight or force. And if you do try to fight it, if you try to force it, you'll find it incredibly exhausting, honestly. To listen to the colors, the decks, the stories that really speak to your soul right now. It's important to remember that you're experiencing a death and rebirth cycle, and you're just currently moving through the death phase. So you're moving through the underworld, or you're even possibly descending into the underworld. And that while you move through this energy, it's best to really just to surrender to it. Death is all, and again, I'm speaking about the tarot card, the death energy. It's just best to always surrender to it, that everybody moves through these moments. You're not alone. Like, everybody goes through these moments, and we'll go through them repeatedly, time and time again, no matter where you are in life and what you've experienced in life. These moments are going to keep reoccurring. To just really be patient with yourself. Remember that we will all eventually resurface and see the light once again. But for now, we are best to surrender, to strip ourselves, our practices down, to cut anything that doesn't really resonate with you anymore. If doing a certain action or ritual or activity just doesn't speak to you anymore, if it doesn't sit right, if it doesn't feel right, to discontinue doing that activity. And again, that doesn't mean that you're never going to do it again, but that also doesn't mean that you will do it again. You'll just possibly replace it with something that you feel is just as meaningful or fulfilling. That it's okay to move through these spaces. I know it's incredibly uncomfortable, but to remember that you're not alone. We all go through this. We all move through the underworld. And to remember that our magic, our magical spaces, our spiritual practices, our craft, our witchcraft, they're all expressions of who we are currently. So just remember that our altars, our magical spaces, they reflect who we are. And it's okay for these things to change when we ourselves change. And these can be practices that we once felt were so fulfilling. They're expressions of who we are. So when we change, it's natural for these things to change as well. I just want to clarify that although I recognize that embracing a new calendar year, like we tend to do around this time of the year, it brings about a lot of self-reflection. Like right now, collectively, a lot of us are really considering how we want to proceed in the new year, what we want to carry into the new year, and what we want to let go of. I'm not really speaking to these periods in our lives. A lot of people can also have the same experience with their birthdays as well, although that's not really relevant either. But although this is very much, this can also be sort of a cause of death card energy. I'm really speaking more to, I'm really just trying to say that these moments can really happen all throughout our lives, all throughout the year. It doesn't need to be just brought about through self-reflection, such as the ones that we initiate through being really self-reflective for New Year's or our birthdays is what I'm trying to say, but doing a poor job. So I did want to mention that I find the energies of Hades and Hecate to be very beneficial, to be very helpful for these periods in our lives, through these changes. I almost feel like we become Persephone when we descend into the underworld, and Hades meets us once we enter the underworld. He takes our hand and he walks with us as we journey through the underworld. At least that's the experience that I have. I also find that I'm more drawn to Hades actually when I'm moving through the underworld, as opposed to Hecate. That's just my personal experience. I experience also when I'm working closely with Hades, I've noticed a lot of nature, or like wildlife animals. They tend to almost avoid me, or they almost, I don't know, I feel like they sense the death energy. I don't know if that's just because of what I'm walking through or if that's because of Hades, but just my own personal observation. I'm just wondering if any of you experience anything similar. But that's about all I really wanted to share with respects to these changes that we experience in our lives, to this death energy, this death card energy, the endings and new beginnings. And I hope that you get something out of this video. I hope you find it helpful, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.